All right, so practical tips for Copilot readiness. So let's talk about Copilot. First of all, let me just introduce myself. So my name is Heidi Jordon. I am a Business Applications Microsoft MVP. I am a senior consultant for Avanade. I live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Yes, it's been negative below zero here for weeks, so I'm ready for a tropical vacation sometime soon here. I tell everyone my tagline is the SharePoint girl living in a Power Platform world. Power Platform has changed my life, but SharePoint is really where my heart was in the beginning and how I got started into this amazing world. So there is my contact information on the screen. If you feel free to get in touch with me, I love to help people understand this stuff and just help them on their journey with Power Platform or anything in Microsoft in general. So I am sure that some of you are thinking like, oh, Copilot, like I'm burnt out on Copilot. So, and I am one of those people as well when it comes to new technology that like I will wait as long as I can until I have to. So that is my own fault, but I'm here to tell you today why you as a Power Platform person need to be paying attention to this and what you should be doing to get your organization ready and yourself ready for the changes that are happening. So that is kind of what we're here to do today. So again, why do I think this is beneficial? This really level sets everyone. Like M365 is for everyone. It is not just about Power Platform here. We're not just learning about, our standard day-to-day where we learn Power Platform and we build things for other people. Like Copilot is here to help you on your journey. So that is why it was such a mind shift for me I'm not learning this to use it for other people. I'm learning to use it to better myself. So that is what we're going to talk about today. And then also I have been using it currently at my job. So I'm going to talk about just another couple things, some of my favorite things that I've had great success with it thus far. So first of all, let's just take a look at, if you've heard of Copilot or Gen AI or anything, you're probably thinking about Enterprise Bing Chat. That is when you go to Microsoft Edge and then you click the little Copilot icon in the top right, this is the screen that will come up. So you'll see either the work search or the web search. So you'll kind of see the little chat bubble and then some of the suggestions there of what you can search for either on the web or for your organization. So that's the work search. And then at the top, you see there's a little toggle. If you flip that from work to web, that will marry the Bing Chat Enterprise AI engine with your work results and bring you some, pretty powerful pieces of information, returning things because it's marrying the two capabilities together. So this is not what we're going to talk about today. I wanted to level set that. This search engine is not really what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is tips for using Microsoft 365 Copilot. So that is the one that is integrated into the apps that you use every day, the PowerPoint, the Outlook, the Excel, the Teams, that little Copilot that's there. The other piece of the integrated apps is also that business chat. And that is what can leverage your calendar, your Teams chats, your documents, and bring everything together so that you can give it those conversational prompts and ask it things like, for example, I used it for, find the SOW for this customer that was authored by this person. Like, so those are the things that I can't just put in a standard search bar in my organizational browser and get that information back. So it's really the business chat is really leveraging that conversational with those extra details that can help you locate what you're looking for faster. So on that note, I'm sure that many of us, when we do bring out, let's go back to the SharePoint days, the number one complaint that people have in SharePoint is I can't find anything. I can't find it. Copilot really introduces this new way of finding things by leveraging those key data points, the authored by this person and assigned to me. It can even, bring those things back. So really, Copilot with no other modifications can help bring those things back and alleviate some of those concerns of I can't find anything. So next up, we're going to go into my 5 tips of getting your organization ready. So let's boil this down to the very basics. Number 1, you need to get your users ready and your products. So on the screen, I have some of the prerequisites. I did link at the bottom there too that has all the requisites that are posted out there. Users need to have an Entra ID account. So you need to have an AD account essentially to get started with Copilot. So make sure that your users have that. You also need to have Exchange Online or SharePoint Online. And you will also need that new Outlook. If you're not using the new Outlook, start looking at getting your users on that, because that's how you can use the Copilot that's integrated into Outlook. Also, users will need a OneDrive account. And then also they will need to be on the current channel or monthly enterprise channel for releases. So take a look at your M365 release schedule and make sure it's not on the semi-annual updates channel. There's a link there for those prerequisites. Next is really just kind of understand the licensing. This changes day by day, literally. It's because I made this presentation this weekend and it changed Monday. So I'm going to skip over this slide, but this one is just saying that these are the various licenses that you can tack Copilot onto. That you'll notice your standard E3, E5, business standard, business premium. That covers most of users in the enterprises. But announced Monday, if you haven't heard yet, that Microsoft is removing that 300 seat limit for Copilot. So now it's going to be available via Copilot Pro for small organizations and individual use. This is another reason why this affects everyone. Like, it used to be like, I don't need to know about that because there's a 300 seat minimum and my organization's never going to get it. But now it's available to you. So now you need to know about this. One thing I don't want to skip over is going back to the very beginning, that Copilot chat, that Bing Enterprise chat, Microsoft Copilot, just the search engine that we were looking at, that is actually included in the E3 and E5 at no cost. So if you're not leveraging that, that would be a really good way to get started on this whole Gen AI and shift and get these tools in the hands of your users. But then the last piece there is that setup link. There is a setup link that you can actually just go into your tenant, paste that Microsoft Copilot setup link, and it will talk you through all of these things that I just did. The licensing, it'll actually connect into your admin center and see if you have the appropriate licensing and take you through a wizard to make sure that you're ready for setup. So tip number 3 is, does your organization have a Gen AI policy? Before you start using any of these tools, you've got to get ahead of the game and get some sort of policy in place. And some of the things that you can include in there are, maybe an acceptable use. Like, I think it's very confusing that, people are saying, don't put sensitive data into AI. We don't want it to get it out there to the world. But then we're bringing AI tools in and asking users to say, show me all the documents for X customer. That's technically sensitive data. So I think really, drawing those lines and clarifying what your users are supposed to be doing and what they're not supposed to be doing will help people out with that policy. And then also data protection, just helping users understand and alleviating that oversharing concern, that the data that you are using is from our tenant. If you're a guest in someone else's tenant, it's not going to include that information in your results. So just kind of clarifying where the data is coming from. And then also think about, non-compliance and violations. And if someone does violate that AI policy, what are the repercussions there? So then as soon as employees understand this, then they can really get started on okay, this is what I can do with it here. Now I can start to look at it and incorporate it into my work products. Tip number 4 is consider your source. One of the very most basic is put your things where Copilot can get to them, aka SharePoint. SharePoint Online, OneDrive, Teams, Exchange, those are the places that Copilot can get to. If you're still using SharePoint on-prem, now is a great time to consider SharePoint Online. So that is where Copilot can get to your documents and such. You really want to take a look at migrating if you haven't already. But then also with Copilot Studio, you can leverage other data sources, such as SAP and Workday. So just for the very basics, if you're not in SharePoint Online, get started moving your documents there. And then also consider, as with any model, this is garbage in, garbage out. Do your due diligence and review your documents. Make sure that there's no junk out there. Copilot is only as good as the information it has access to. And this also brings in the trust but verify. So for example, I had a meeting with a customer and they had a question about, is Copilot accessible? So I wrote down the note, check to see if Copilot is accessible. Meaning Microsoft accessibility, disability, etc. And then ran a search later about, is it accessible? And it came back as the answer is yes, because it pulled it from my notes that I had written down. Copilot is accessible. So trust but verify. It's not always going to be the correct things that you're expecting from your queries and prompts. The biggest thing that I want to take away from this slide, though, is data labeling. If you're not doing data labeling right now, you need to think about it. You need to think about Purview and labeling your documents, because Copilot cannot access things that are certain labels. I don't know off the top of my head what it is. I think it's restricted or highly confidential or something like that, but you need to find those labels that you can label the documents that you don't want Copilot to bring back in the search results. And then also, the more you label your documents, the more you're going to get the more relevant responses for the prompts that you have. So really, you're going to make your model better by ensuring that the data is labeled properly. And then I know this sounds great, Heidi, but how do I don't know what Purview is. I don't even know where to start. Okay, so one of my pro tips is if you want to learn about a new thing completely, Purview, SharePoint Syntax can do some of this for you. Go to one of those conference websites that was shown earlier. Go in there and look for some of the sessions and look for some of the speakers. So for example, Joanne Klein, another rock star in this community, she is the person I go to for Purview and data protection. She's definitely doing a session there, and I can see some of the topics that she's talking about. And then I know I'm going to follow her and I'm going to learn about Purview and data protection from her. So take a look at some of those speakers on those conference websites and some of those sessions to see what should I be learning? Where should I start? What are the things that I need to be aware of? Last tip. So Copilot is a product. This is like, treat it like any other product. If you are going to roll out Power Apps, as most of you probably have, if you just go and you put it in the organization, you don't do anything with it, it's not going to be used. Copilot is the same way. Treat this like a product. It deserves training. It deserves a rollout. It deserves attention. But in that sense, do not reinvent the wheel. Go to the Microsoft adoption site there. I have a link, and there is a whole slew of resources out there. Everything from personas to prompt engineering to literally anything you want for training. Go out there and check it out on the Microsoft adoption website for Copilot. But if you want to build your own training, here's a couple high-level things that I think are necessary. There's technical training and contextual training. So technical is really just, what is AI, and then really talking about the prompts, the prompt engineering, understanding that there's those hallucinations. I didn't understand that you can do conversational context with Copilot. So you can say, like, for example, like, what are all the comedy movies in my collection? And it will give me a response, and I can say, okay, what about drama? So I can reference that question or that prompt that I did above and continue it going like a conversation. And then things like root prompts. You can say, like, from now on, make all my responses professional, or make all my responses comedic, or something like that. And then it will just maintain that through the whole session. And then just interaction patterns. This is another cool one where you can flip the script on Copilot. Like, you can say, I need to build like a user persona guide for a communications employee who's going through a SharePoint Online migration. Ask me questions until you have all the information you need to build the persona. And then it will ask you questions. So flip the script on it if you don't really know what you need out of the model. And then for contextual, getting them, meeting there in their onlyness, getting them those quick start guides to how do I actually get started with this in bite-sized pieces. So for example, I have in here for Copilot and Teams. So tell them where it's available. You can use Copilot in web, desktop, mobile, because there are differences in where you can access Copilot. What are some of the things you can do with it? I can summarize key meeting points. I can do decisions made, give them some of those sample things that they can do, give them some example prompts of how to get that information, but then also make them aware of the limitations. Like, for example, you need to have transcription on if you're going to be able to summarize meetings. So that's another thing for organizational readiness is, do you want to turn on transcription for your meetings? Do you want to educate your users how to turn it on or turn it off, etc.? And then last slide here. The bottom line here is that, Copilot is most successful with the people that are balancing risk and reward. So you need to get those use cases out there, those quick starter guides for people to actually start seeing some benefit. Otherwise, you're going to get buried in this is AI, this is scary, and then you're going to get stuck with legal and never even deploy it. So if you don't get ahead, this is here to stay. If you don't get ahead of AI and start training your users on how to use it, you're going to be investing in software that is seeing how other people are taking data outside to use AI tools elsewhere. This is the same thing with the SharePoint rollout. If you don't train people how to store their documents or share them properly, you're going to invest in monitoring software for Google Drive and Box, etc. So treat it like any other. But that is all I have for today. I see we're right at time. So thank you for listening about Copilot, and I hope that helps.